Welcome to the Gibson Sylvestre Show, where brilliance meets purpose and world changers gather to ignite their destiny.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Gibson Sylvestre Show, where brilliance meets purpose and the world's most influential voices share their wisdom with us. Today, I have the extraordinary honor to sit down with a man whose impact stretches across industries and generations, a true American pioneer. Before he helped shape global music, he was already breaking historic records by becoming one of the first African Americans to sell MRI machines and contributing significantly to breast cancer detection technology. His brilliance didn't stop at entertainment. He went on to innovate and to create one of the biggest Black-owned entertainment companies in the world. Raised in the segregated South of Alabama, Gadsden, remember that? Gadsden, Alabama, to be exact. He survived hatred, like trying to integrate in schools and having people spit on him and trauma. And it transformed his adversity to this unstoppable drive and fire. And through it all, he emerged as a builder, a pioneer, a cultural icon, a businessman, and he's left a legacy. He is the visionary architect of the group Destiny's Child, the most successful girls group in history. His mother and his father were great impacts in his life. He is the father of Solange in her groundbreaking, as she's an artist. She's a composer for the New York City Ballet. She is amazing in her own right. He's also the father of Beyonce. She's been awarded the most Grammys than any other singer in history. He is an award-winning executive. He's an entrepreneur. He's an amazing keynote speaker, best-selling author. His company, Music World Entertainment, has changed the landscape of artist development and global branding. Please join me in welcoming a cultural architect, a barrier breaker, a strategist, a survivor, and one of the most influential minds that we have in the modern time. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to Mr. Mathew Knowles.
Thank you, Gibson. That was an amazing introduction. So I always try to tell my assistant, who's been with me 25 years, give them the short version.
I know sometimes it's hard to just hear all these wonderful things about you, right? But I want to say, like we were talking before in our brief pre-meeting, I want to set the intention. And my intention is for everyone that listens to this show to know one thing, that Mathew Knowles is a great human being. He's a man of compassion. He's a man of great discipline. He's a man of great excellence. And so I want to give you your flowers, Brother Mathew. You've been an inspiration in my own personal life, from one Black man to the next. And just watching you over the years and your poise and your character and just how you conduct yourself, even under pressure, that's been a blessing and that's been an impact in my life. So I just want to say thank you to you.
Well, thank you, Gibson, again. In this world that we live today, that's chaotic and rushed. It's just kind of good to have a sense of calm and grace, right?
Yeah, we need, especially in our world today, we need that calm and grace,
Yeah.
we really do. I wanted to ask you, first and foremost, what was it like growing up in the segregated South? How did that impact you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you for that. We're talking 1952 when I was born in Gadsden, Alabama. George Wallace, just a segregationist, was the governor. We had colored and white, restrooms and water fountains. Black people couldn't go to restaurants. It's kind of hard to believe you couldn't go to movies with the whites.
Wow.
Totally segregated. So my mother went to high school with Coretta King, Dr. King's wife. And my wife went to high school, both of them, all three of them, Andrew Young's wife, an algorithm, this little small town, 3,000 people near Selma, Alabama, Marion, Alabama. And so when she moved to Gaston, she brought that fire and torch of desegregation. So I really never went to a black school until my junior year of college, elementary, junior high, high school, University of Tennessee. I integrated. So there was a real price and trauma paid for that.
Wow.
Uh, but it was tough. I've been spit on. I've been electric prodded. I've been
Wow.
called every name you can imagine. But still, as I said, in this world that we feel chaotic, at rest, I still have a sense of calm and grace.
That's so amazing. I got a chance to sit down with Mamie Tricky Brown. She was one of the Little Rock Nine, and she made a comment to me that even now, and as she's an elder now, and she says she was so traumatized by just some of the things that happened to her, even so many years have passed. So people, I think people fail to sometimes understand of what I call, you know, post-slavery or post-segregation stress syndrome. That stuff is
Well,
real.
you're so right about Gibson. It's really amazing to me because when you think about it, we hear daily, even in the news today, it's about young girls who were taken advantage of when they were kids, and that trauma that has affected them in their late years. So it's no different with racism than it is of raping a young boy or girl. It brings about trauma.
Yes.
I've had to go to years of therapy. I mean, years of therapy just to deal with the trauma of those years I talked about, like my childhood.
Yeah, I think therapy is something that we all need. No matter where we are in our life. It's a friend of mine once put it this way. He said therapy is like when you take your car for a tune-up. Over you get mileage, you get gunk inside the engine. It's just a way to just clear out all the pipes and so that you can run at your most optimal level, right? And so I think therapy is something, and I'm so happy now in the nomenclature, people are talking about it more, especially in our community, which before it was a luxury, right?
Yeah.
And so now people are talking about it more.
Well,
Now,
and before we kept it a secret,
oh yes, oh yes,
you know,
yeah.
because it wasn't the norm for blacks, and so you kept that quiet and secretive. And you're right that today, when you look at health and wellness, overall health and wellness, uh, and especially for black men and women, mental health is a key aspect of health and overall health and wellness.
Yes, yes, that's so right. That's so right. And there was a great American philosopher. He said, especially for us men, we think the machismo and the macho, we don't need help. There was a great philosopher who said many men live lives of quiet desperation, and that's so true. And it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to
Right.
be that way, and so we can reach out and help people. Now, I once heard a story that you told of being with your mother and some people from the Ku Klux Klan was trying to assault you or to assail you. Whatever happened to that?
That was my second book, Racism from the Eyes of a Child. I share my first memory of racism. My mom, in the summers, it was pretty normal in the South that you go down to your grandparents and you spend maybe a month during the summer with your grandparents. It was a great thing to experience. And my mom and my grandmother were like oil and, and water. They didn't get along at all. And this night was no different. And my mom had a hot temper, and my older brother, who's 9 years older than me, uh, she gathered us and said, "Hey, look, we're leaving and we're going to our cousin's house." Well, that meant we had to walk about a mile. on the
Wow.
side of the highway. And it's Marion, Alabama, in the woods. There's no lights on the freeway, just the moon and the stars. And in the distance, you could hear these horns. And then my mom's whole personality changed, Gibson. And she said, "Hey, we got to get in the woods. We got to get in the woods now." Now, I'm 5 years old.
Mm.
I'm 5 years old. My brother's 14. And so we get in the woods, and then you could start seeing lights coming, and you could hear the horns louder. And then finally, my mother got on top of me because I started crying. And she said to my brother, his name was Jesse, she said, "Jesse, if anything happened, there was a barbed wire fence with cows on the other side. Y'all crawl under that barbed wire fence and just run as fast as you can."
Wow.
And finally, that caravan passed by, and that was a caravan of KKK,
Oh
Ku
no.
Klux
That's
Klansmen.
wow. Wow, it's so interesting that you say that because many people today they look at segregation and racism and all this and they it's like they think it's so far away. And I recently was talking to a group of young people in the inner city, just trying to mentor them and be a positive role model for them. And I had a gallery of pictures that I showed them. One picture was of the great John Lewis. The other was C.T. Vivian, Martin King's best friend. The other one was Mamie Tricky Brown, Little Rock Nine,
Mhm.
and there was a few others. I can't think of the other ones now, but these are all civil rights icons. And I showed them these pictures of them, and the kids look at me and they say, "Oh, this guy's he looks young. He's like a cool guy, whatever." And I said, "That's me in conversation with all these elders." I said, "I'm not that old of a guy." I said, "These people live through Selma. They live through segregation." Um, you know, and John Lewis, his head perpetually bust open with police clubs. I
Yeah.
said, "That's not too far away. This is in our lifetime. This is in
Well,
our
what
lifetime."
why are you so right about that is, I just shared. I love going to my grandparents' house. My grandfather's dad, who would be my great grandfather, was born a slave.
Mm.
So we often think that it's so far away. That's four generations.
No, it's not that far away. It really
My
isn't.
grandfather's father was born a slave.
That's not that far away.
No.
And so, one of the things I always say is if we don't know our history, if we don't learn our history, we're doomed to repeat it. And that's why I always tell the young people, I always say to them, I said, this is not that far away. And so, we have an obligation to be something because people died over this. They died. And one of
Yeah.
the things that breaks my heart, Brother Matthew, is someone once said, if you want to keep something away from black children, put it in a book. When I heard that, not only was I offended, I felt like just heartbroken that they would say
Yeah.
that. That
Yeah.
literacy, and even with my story, I didn't learn how to read until I was in the third grade because I had a learning disability. Someone didn't figure that out, and now by the grace of God, I've been able to write multiple books because once a kid doesn't know how to read in America, they start building prisons by the third grade reading scores. That's how they indicate these big corporations. They look at the reading scores and they say, this is the projection of how much prisons we have to build because 80% of people in prison, I've been doing prison ministry now for about 15 years, and 80% of those in prison, they indicate one thing, they have trouble communicating. So they have immense communication skills.
That's absolutely correct. And when you talk about history, I define history as his story. And oftentimes we're getting information that's his story, not history,
Mm,
but his story. So we have to be careful. Are we getting history or his story?
Could you break that down a little bit? Because
because history is spelled HIS.
Mm-hmm.
So put a hyphen. Story.
Okay.
So history is not what we think. It's often in America a white man's version.
Okay. I
It's
see.
his story.
I get you. I'm picking up what you're putting down now. Now I see why they call you the professor. You know, my granddaddy used to say, if you see a turtle on a fence post, know that it got help getting there. And one of my favorite quotes that I live by is, I am who I am because somebody loved me, somebody tended to me, somebody helped me and loved me when I was unlovable, hugged me when I was unhuggable. And as I look at your story, I know so much went into you. So I want to know, Matthew, the man, what went into you? Tell me about your coaches. I want to know about your mama and your daddy. I want to know about all the great people, the professors that invested in you, because you're a remarkable man. But I know that it's not by accident that that happened. So tell me what went inside of you.
Yeah, growing up as a kid, my mom and dad, I'm third generation entrepreneur.
Wow.
My mom, she was a colored maid, Gibson. She made $3 a day,
Wow.
$15 a week. And
Wow.
as a kid, I couldn't understand when this white woman would come in the morning and pick her up in a car, and my mom would sit in the back, and back seat, and I could never, as a kid, understand that. But my mom, being the entrepreneur, convinced this white woman to give her all her hand-me-down clothes. And she convinced her neighbors and friends to do the same. And on the weekend, my mom and her three best girlfriends would make these beautiful quilts. So my mom made $15 a week on that job, but they would sell these quilts for like $50, $75.
Oh my goodness.
My dad made $30 a week, twice as much as my mom, $30 a week, go figure, as a truck driver, stamps and company, produce truck driver. He convinced those white folks to let him keep that truck all the time. And he would go tear down old houses, sell the wood, the copper, the aluminum. He would buy abandoned cars, because back then in the South, when your car broke down, people just left them in the front yard. He would give them $20 for it, and he would sell every part of the car. And he made a significant income doing that. He was also a volunteer fireman, because black men at that time, they couldn't be firemen. They had to volunteer. And so my dad would be up at night after working 2 jobs, sometimes 3, listening to that CB radio to give back to his community. Wow. I always say one word to describe my dad, he was just loving. And my mom, she had tough love, but she wanted the very, very best for me and my brother. We had encyclopedias. I had a gas BB gun. I had one of the newest bicycles. I got the first racing car set. They provided those things. But with that, a tremendous amount of love, determination. And my parents always said that I could be anything I wanted to be. And I believed it.
Wow.
And there was another person in that town, Gaston, Alabama, Reverend B.L. Walker. He was my godfather. He was a top minister there. And my parents, when they first got married, the South had boarding rooms. And, you rent a room. And so they had they rented from Reverend Walker when they were first early marriage. And we lived on the same street in Gaston, and Reverend Walker would pass by daily. He had a suit on. And one day I said, Reverend Walker, why do you wear a suit to go just to the grocery store down the street. And he says, Junior, I'm Mathew Junior. Junior, one day you'll understand. You'll understand that you're a leader in a community, that people look up to you.
Mm.
And you have to look the role.
Wow.
And you have to live the role.
Wow. So
Of
you had a
leadership.
lot, you had a lot that went into you, man. Oh, salute,
Yeah.
salute the ancestors and and salute our parents and our coaches and stuff that just that's remarkable. That's remarkable. I think a lot of things for us is passed down through the DNA. Like my grandmother and my grandfather on my dad's side, they dealt a lot with tailoring and fashion and clothing, and they did tailoring for others. They made clothing, and if you know anything about me, is one thing I'm passionate about in this order: God, family, sports, and fashion. And I don't know what it is. Even the first day I went to elementary school, I was, most kids are like trying to figure out how they're going to be with apart their mom. I was trying to figure out what outfit I was going to wear.
Oh,
So I
wow.
think, yeah, so I
Now
think
where did you grow up?
I grew up in South Florida. We moved around through the different counties, but Southern Florida. And I had a very rough upbringing, very similar to yourself, but it wasn't rural. This was inner city. And I had a choice to make whether I was going to go the route of some of my contemporaries, some of my friends, and a lot of them were, they chose the streets. And unfortunately, a lot of them died. They passed away. Or one day I was in the Bahamas with my family on vacation. I turned on the news in the Bahamas, and a kid that I went to school with was being high speed chased by the police because he had just killed somebody.
Wow. How
So
did that end?
well, they caught him, they apprehended him, and now he's in jail, for life. Yeah. But it's like, again, I had a choice of what path. It's like that, two paths diverge. Which one will you take? And for me, if I could be very open with you, um, I grew up in a home that was very religious, mostly Christian. Some might even say fundamental. So I completely rejected that because I felt it was forced upon me. I'd go to church and my dad being a minister, they would say, "Oh, this kid is wearing saggy pants. He's going to hell. Look at him. He's going to be a little hoodlum." So I felt really rejected by the church and by religion. And so I turned the whole thing off. So I went astray. I was the prodigal son, right? So what brought me back into the fold was as I studied religion, lots of different religious, Nation of Islam, Muslim, Hare Krishna. I was a very inquisitive young man, but what got me was just when I studied Christianity, the real Christianity from the book. It was the love of Christ. Like I just knew Jesus loved me. I don't know. I couldn't logically tell you or pedantically or from an intellectual standpoint, but when I read the Gospels, I just knew, and it brought me to tears the night that I gave my life to Christ. I knew He loved me. I just knew He loved me, and because of trauma in my childhood, rejection in my childhood, all the stuff I've been through, that was very important and instrumental of shaping me as a human being. And so yeah, so that's my story, really.
Well, during that era, 50s and 60s, a lot of us grew up in the church.
Mm.
Uh, I actually went, believe it or not, to a Catholic elementary school.
Wow.
Uh, my mother and dad were Baptists. My mom wanted to be Catholic back then. If you had a divorce, you couldn't become a Catholic. I eventually became a Catholic. I was Methodist. Uh, Today is for me, it's not religion and spirituality.
Okay.
I, as I tell my students, I encourage perspectives and
Yes.
I respect perspectives on any topic, religion being one. But what works for me? is spirituality, and
Oh,
a wholeness and peace. Uh, I don't engage in the competition of one religion is better than the other
no.
one, and this is how we're accepted. I don't engage in that, but that's my perspective.
I
Appreciate
love
others.
I love Voltaire. Voltaire said, I may fundamentally disagree with you, but I will fight
Yeah,
to the death for your opportunity to have your own opinion, your own philosophy.
right.
And I think in this world today, you have to have that mentality because not everyone has your same background, not everyone have your same
Yeah,
history. And so I think that's very, very, very important. So like we're talking about entrepreneurships and I mean, it clearly came through your DNA. Do you think that impacted um, your daughters, Solange and Beyonce? Like, because
yeah,
as I look at their lives, at least from what I can see, they're very entrepreneurial, very
yeah,
entrepreneurial.
yeah. I mean, it's absolutely 100%. I've written 6 books. My first book, oddly enough, we're talking about DNA, is the DNA of Achievers. 10
Yes,
traits of highly successful professionals.
yes.
Now, 15 years ago, did I understand DNA in a medical sense? No, it was metaphoric.
Okay, okay.
Today, I do understand DNA in a medical sense because it will change the way we do medicine in the future. We'll look at the chromosomes and our parents, and that DNA will be also emotional DNA, intellectual DNA, how we look, how we walk, talk, all of that, right?
Wow,
So entrepreneurship actually on both sides of my family.
that's
So
amazing.
yes,
Wow,
absolutely. To answer your question,
that's
it's
amazing.
it's impacted. Solange and Beyonce watch in the 80s. We opened one of the not one the largest black hair salon in Houston,
Are you serious?
called Headliners. In 1984, we made our first $1 million.
Oh my goodness, wow.
And just for the record of y'all, if we made our first $1 million in 1984, that means Beyonce was 3 years old. She was born in 1981. So any of these rumors that Beyonce took care of us, no, we took care of her. And she saw her parents as successful entrepreneurs.
Yes. You know, I'm going to get into that later on, but tell me about your corporate experience. I know you did, from what I read, you were the first African American to sell MRI machines.
And CT scanners.
Are
I
you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. So
Oh my God.
so my corporate background, 20 years in diagnostic imaging, an area that black folks aren't very familiar with. Going to the radiology department and getting X-rays and MRIs and CT scans. Uh, but I started at Xerox Corporation. 1 year selling copiers. 1 year they had an engineering division, a microfiche reader printer. We used to have microfiche back in the day. And then I got this quantum leap promotion at Xerox to the medical division, which was their premier number one. No blacks. We had one other black person then. And we sold zero radiography, which was a leading modality for breast cancer. And I did that for 8 years at Xerox Medical Systems, was a number one sales rep in the world, 3 out of 4 years, number one in the
Wow.
world. And the president of Xerox Medical uh, then became president of a much larger medical company, which became Philips Medical Systems.
Okay.
And one of the products that they sold were CT and MRI scanners. So in 1988, first generation MRI CT, and me being the first black in America to do that was a big deal because I mean, technology would be like selling AI right now when
That's, yeah.
everybody's not
It was
really
so
knowledgeable.
innovative. It was so innovative. And I want to bring up two things. The first thing I want to bring up is because of your experience and your background, in detecting breast cancer, you also are a survivor of breast cancer. So maybe
Yeah,
was that, yeah, you were able to were you able to self-diagnose? How did that occur?
it was that because the training, we got significant training. Uh, some of the training was on male breast cancer in the 80s. And so uh, when I had those symptoms for male breast cancer, I knew immediately that it was a possibility that it was male breast cancer and requested that I get a mammogram. And my physician kind of laughed and said, "Hey, my 30 years, I never had a guy ask for a mammogram." I said, "You got to trust me. I'm not really asking. I'm telling you, I need a mammogram." And sure
Wow.
enough, it
Wow.
turned out that
Thank
I
God.
had,
Thank God, he
yeah,
preserved your life, man. The world would have had a major loss without you, my brother. So
yeah,
thank
thank
God
you.
he preserved your life. And the second thing I wanted to say is you mentioned also that you were in Houston with your frat brothers, and there was a Caucasian gentleman that overheard you talking and offered you your entry into the industry. And I bring that up because to suffice it to say that and I say this to not just young people, but to anybody. You never know who's watching you. Why
Or
don't you
listening.
or listening to you?
So it was, happy hours on a Friday back in the day. I asked my students, "Y'all guys still do happy hour?" And they looked at me crazy, like, "Happy hour? What is that?" So anyway, back in the day on a Friday, because we all worked downtown Houston, I was at Pitney Bowes then, sold mailing equipment. And so, we was just there having a good time, brothers, just, having a good time on Friday. And this little short white guy comes up to me and he's like, "Can I speak to you for a minute?" He says, "I've been listening to you guys and amazing, but you stood out, your leadership and your qualities, listening." He says, "How would you like to work at Xerox?" And I'm thinking, this guy, come on, man. And so then he showed me a business card, and sure enough, head of human resources. And he says, "How about coming to our office at 8 o'clock on Monday?" This was a Friday. And that's how I got my job.
Wow. And that's this, and that just goes to speak that nothing happens by coincidence.
Nothing.
It's all providence. The preparation we do in secret will one day manifest in public, right? And
But you
and
said
it,
a key word. We have to, I always say this, when opportunity arises, you have to be prepared. Because a lot of people miss the window of opportunity because the
mm,
window opens, they're not prepared to go through it. I
wow.
got my job in the medical division of Xerox because when I asked the branch manager, could I interview for this role, he kind of laughed and said it'd be good experience for you, Knowles. I mean, don't you understand? The medical division is the elite division. What he also wanted to say, it's just white guys. But what he didn't know is literally 2 blocks away was the Houston Public Library. And I had 30 days to prepare for my interview. So when
Wow.
I interviewed, when everybody else interviewed, they would talk about, "Oh, I've been at Xerox 20 years, 15 years." When I interviewed, I talked about technology, what breast cancer, I didn't go in there with sales history. I came in with a knowledge of the technology, and that impressed the regional manager because I was the only one who had done research on breast cancer.
Wow. They were playing checkers, you were playing chess, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
they thought they were at the table for the meal, but they were actually the meal. So yeah, um tell us about World Music Entertainment. What inspired you to start this your company?
A number of things. Beyonce had lost, she was in a girl group called Girls Time. They were 11, 12 years old. And they went to Star Search, which is equivalent now to American Idol.
Mm,
And the managers, they had the right intention, but they didn't understand the industry. And nor did I, because I was just a dad and I would drop her off, go play some basketball, and come back and pick her up. And because my wife was working on the weekends, I spent a lot of time with them. She was in a hair salon. And so at the same time, I was going to a few seminars in Houston to understand a little bit about music. And this rapper named Lil O came up to me around the same time. It goes back to these things aren't luck or happenstance. And so I decided that I had given myself 20 years in corporate America. This was probably year 18. I decided that I would transition, not quit, transition out of corporate America into the music industry. And so
what's the difference? What's the difference between transition?
Because some people often they have this idea, they frantic, they don't like what they're doing, and they just quit and then start interviewing and haven't prepared for that day. I transitioned. I went while I was working. I'm a sales guy, so I have a lot of time because being in sales is like owning your own business. And so I had time to go back to school, take artist management courses, production courses, and transition. So that day I turned in my resignation, my company was up and running.
Wow.
Versus turning in my resignation and now like, yeah, I'm gonna go into the music industry. Well, there's a gap. From the day you turn your resignation, there's a gap before you really start in the music industry and become successful. You hadn't done the groundwork.
Wow. That's so prudent, and I think in the world of social media, it sounds sexy. I fire your boss, but you got a mortgage. Hello, And so I think the way you did it was very, very sagacious and very prudent, So let me ask you this. How did you take some of your experience in corporate and add that experience in your sales and your marketing and put that same hustle into the music business?
Well, we had the hair salon, we had the music industry. You being in fashion, well, we created one of the largest urban fashion brands, House of Darion and the Miss Tina line at Walmart. So I didn't know anything about zero radiography. I didn't know anything about MRIs and CT scanners. I didn't know anything about the apparel industry. I didn't know anything about music. What I do know is how to build a brand and how to build brand identity. What I do know is people buy me first, then my product. And what I do know, the simplistic algorithm of what success is, the who, the what, the why, the where. Who is my customer? What is my product? Why should they buy it? And where do they purchase the distribution channel? It's simple. The who, the what, the why, the where. And oftentimes we make things so complicated. Wow. I'm simplistic, and I think that's part of our success is you use that same formula regardless if you're in music, apparel, clothing, hair industry, music, it doesn't matter. People buy you first, and then it's the who, the what, the why, the where.
That's phenomenal. So how do you get them to buy into you?
I think people buy into your knowledge. When you're talking at a high level, people know in a matter of seconds if you know what you're talking about. Can you imagine me selling MRI and the only Black person, and I'm in Brownsville, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, New Orleans, I'm in Jackson, Mississippi. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. That was my territory. Can you imagine the scrutiny that I got? But that wasn't the real scrutiny. My career ended as a neurosurgical sales specialist with Johnson and Johnson, which means that neurosurgeon has your brain wide open. And he's looking up at me and said, Mr. Knowles, what do I do next? Doing a surgical procedure. That's when you had better know what you're talking about. So my thing is always to put the energy and work and the passion. I believe when you live your passion, you never work a day in your life.
Yes.
The things I've done in life, I did them also because I'm passionate about them.
Wow. It shows. It really does show, because the thing that it's a conundrum to me is when you're doing it, you just make it look easy. And I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy, but you make it look so easy. And I think that's the science mixed with the poetry that is blended together, because you exude that. You make it look effortlessly. But let's talk Destiny's Child. So you leave corporate America. Now you're in the music industry. You're managing this Houston-based artist. How did Destiny's Child become about?
Well, the girls' time, and then they lost. And then I talked to Ed McMahon, who was the host, and I said, "Look, I'm a dad. These kids are crying. I don't know what to do." And he looked at me. He says, "I don't know what it is about my show. The people that consistently win on my show never do anything professionally.
Mm.
It's the people who lose." He started naming off Boyz II Men, Usher, Justin Timberlake, Alanis Morissette, Britney Spears. He went on and on. Who lost
Wow.
the first time on Star Search? And he says, those are the people and organizations that went back and they changed their whole direction and refocus, often made changes. He shared the Boyz II Men that was on Star Search. They changed some number. So it's sometimes in our failure is when we really, really grow and learn and change.
Wow.
It's in our failure. In our failure often is opportunities to grow and become better and change.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when they did that, and I went back to school, and then I became the co-manager. Unfortunately, my co-manager died of lupus before this all happened, and so I took over as the manager, and the rest is history.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And so, did you know that you were going to have the amount of success? I mean, just looking at the numbers, would it be safe to say empirically it's the most successful girl group in history? The
No, it
Destiny's
is.
Child?
Destiny's Child was the most successful girl group in the history of music. Trinity 5-7, I did 7 albums, or 6 albums on my label. Had a #1 gospel label, Music World Gospel. They're the #1 contemporary gospel girl group in the history of music. Beyonce is the #1 winner of Grammys on earth, as you said. And she's the #1 female artist now in the history of music.
Wow.
So did I think that would happen? Let me think. I was the #1 sales rep in the world at Xerox. We had the #1 hair salon. Why wouldn't I think it would happen, Gibson?
So you're telling me you can sell ice to an Eskimo, flame to a fire, water to a river, I'll say this. So years ago, this might have been 10, 11 years ago, my wife and I were at an after party. It was Jay-Z Watch the Throne after party. It was here in Miami, and Beyonce was there. And, I have to be very frank with you. I've had the privilege of meeting presidents, kings, and queens. And I was just starstruck by her. And my wife was my wife is more of an introverted personality. I'm more of an extroverted personality. My wife was she was just like shy, kind of went into herself, didn't want to interact. And but Beyonce, she was walking by us because we were in a special section there, and very gracious. So that's a testament
Yeah.
to you and your friend Tina, your former wife. Just what the way we were raised, you treat everyone. The person that's, serving your food, the person that comes in your home and clean your home, the people that are in the back of restaurants, we're told to treat everybody the same, whether you're
We
the
were
president.
grown. We grew up with the same mantra. Uh, I often say with Solange and Beyonce, what makes them special is just that,
Yeah.
is that they would be as gracious to the janitor. I used to say, as they would to the president. Now I say they would be as gracious to the janitor as they would be to President Obama. We'll leave that alone.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, um, she was just very gracious,
Yeah,
very human, and just went up to my wife and just shook her hand and just was very human. It was a human
yeah.
type of a thing. And of course my wife was like, that was pretty cool. Anyways, so I just wanted to share that with you as a father, that says a lot about you. That says a lot about
Thank
you
you.
and how you raised your children to be. Um, so let's look at one of the things that was, as I was thinking about you, is I was thinking about these inventors, these black inventors. One was Nathan Nearest Green, who was an enslaved man who taught his slave master a special type of distillery method, and he and his slave owner created Jack Daniels whiskey and never gave him credit for it. Another one was Dr. Mark Dean. He was an IBM engineer who co-invented the ISA bus and led to the development of the first color PC. So when we see color on
Wow.
our computers, it's because of him, a black man. Another one was Philip Emagawi. He invented the first massively parallel supercomputer, and Gates basically borrowed it, and this is how we get the internet. So there would be no internet had he not. He built the first supercomputer by which one computer can communicate with another computer. Alice Parker, who patented a natural gas heating system that inspired HVAC technology. Dr. Patricia Bath invented the laser cataract surgery. No one ever talks about her. Otis Boykin developed the precision resistor used in pacemakers that they place in surgical hearts. I mean, the list goes on and on. Uh, Lewis Latimer, who invented the carbon filament that made Edison's light bulb work. And he was afraid to even take credit for it because he felt if someone knew a black man did that, then he would get killed. And I remember one time talking to Hank Aaron, and Hank Aaron was obviously the first black man to break the home run record of Babe Ruth. And I asked Mr. Aaron, I said, how was that? He said, Gibson, it was terrifying. They had to have umpteen police surround my house. I got death threats. People calling me, hey, N-word, if you break that record, we're gonna come and kill you and hang you and everything. Um, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who was a guitar pioneer, who created,
Delta, Mississippi really should be given credit for rock and roll.
yeah, oh yeah, so you know this. So and then Big Mama Thornton, Hound Dog, Elvis'
Elvis
biggest song.
Presley.
Yeah. There's I
So
mean on
you
and
get
on
into
and on.
music. I'm a historian when it comes to music. As a matter of fact, I teach at Pepperdine. I co-teach now African American aesthetic culture from spirituals to hip hop. So when you get into that whole thing, we could talk about country music, and when most people don't know, first Grand Ole Opry, the very first Grand Ole Opry was a black man playing a harmonica.
Wow.
The
Wow.
Ford, the Ford Bailey.
Wow. And your daughter just came up with a with an album that was a country album, but she got some pushback. But I did, and the reason I bring this up, it's not random. Believe me, it's not random. The reason I bring this up is I want to make an argument here on the show that when you look at Mathew Knowles, that's with one T, by the way. Um, they better get their name right, right? But I want to argue that you are the most successful music manager probably in the history of music. And I don't know why people aren't talking about it. And that really
Well,
pisses me off. Excuse
we
my
know
French,
why.
but that pisses me off.
Yeah, we know why.
Yeah. And
From the
I'm
year,
just sick and tired of brilliant, brilliant black people doing great things, but nobody gives them credit for it. Nobody. I
yeah.
understand all the other people, but I'm sorry, but if you look at just the numbers, nobody's done a better job than you. That's just a fact. It's not an
Well, they could
opinion.
just look at Billboard.
Yeah.
You go and look at the Billboard of the decade from the year 2000 to 2009. They do a decade review and they list, and these are real numbers. This is not social media numbers. This is real numbers. And Destiny's Child was ranked the number one female girl group. Beyonce was ranked, and from that decade, see, people are thinking Beyonce now. I'm talking 2000, 2009. She was ranked the number one female artist. See, a part of this is people, again, his story versus history. And we
Wow.
don't have all the facts. We talk about Beyonce and country music. Google Compadre Records. Google it. Guess who owned it? Me, a country label. I bought it in 2002. So let's think. Her dad owned a country label. Billy Joe Shaver, again, just like Hank Aaron, I could talk about, hey, I own this country label. Billy Joe Shaver, a legend, he signed to my record label. I couldn't do that because had I, then white folks would have stopped buying records from Compadre.
Mm. Wow, I get you. I get you. So sometimes, I get you. I won't let the cat out the hat, but I'm picking up what you're putting down, Mr.
Yeah.
Knowles. I want to talk about Solange. Sometimes it's so difficult when you have a larger than life sister. But in her own right, I mean, look what she's doing. She's gone into academia like yourself. She has all these residencies. I mean, she plays some fire music. I'm talking fire music. And tell me about Solange and just everything that like why you're so proud of her because I want to give her flowers too because
Yeah.
as an
Uh,
artist, she's the bomb. Okay, she's the
yeah.
bomb.com. So yeah.
Solange always dared to be different. Uh, Reminded me of myself and my mom. Uh, I remember she was in junior high school in Houston, and I got a call from the principal's office around 7:20 in the morning. I dropped her off. He was like, "Mr. Knowles, can you come down to my office?" So I'm thinking something's wrong. I said, "She's okay." He said, "Oh, no, 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 there's no, she's okay. It's just we need to talk to you." I get there, the principal, assistant principal, and her English teacher. And they said, well, Mr. Knowles, we want you to look at this. And it was a petition that Solange had got the students to sign to fire the English teacher. You know why?
Why?
Because the English teacher asked them to turn in a project from someone that was a poet and why they admired this poetry, their poetry and this poet. Her poet was Nas, and her teacher said Nas is a rapper. And Solange said, no, he's a poet. And she was right. And I sat there and I said, my daughter is absolutely right. Now,
Wow.
maybe she shouldn't try to get the teacher fired, but that would be Solange.
She's got activism in her blood. Nas is he, Elmatic, arguably the greatest rap album. He did that before age 19.
And
Can you
guess who was
imagine
Nas' manager?
what happened?
Did you know I was Nas' manager?
No, no.
So after Illmatic, what was the next album that sounded like
You
that?
were,
Illmatic, Stillmatic.
yes, you were the manager?
And in 2000 to 2002.
How, like, my thing is,
Life Jennings, I managed. Mario, I managed. I can go on and on.
let me ask you this. Is it, uh, is it a skill you learned or is it the Midas touch? Be honest with me.
Again, it goes back to really engulfing myself in understanding marketing, understanding brand and brand development and brand identity, understanding building strategic relationships. Think about Beyonce, L'Oreal. Sony had $1 million marketing budget. L'Oreal had a $20 million marketing budget for every commercial. Pepsi and Destiny's Child with McDonald's. I walked into McDonald's with the president and said, no, Destiny's Child is not pitching hamburgers and French fries. We were the reason McDonald's got into salads. Look at the commercial with Destiny's Child. It's with a guy, delivery boy, going into the recording studio with a salad that was created because of Destiny's Child.
Wow. So in other words, before Destiny Child, they weren't serving salads at McDonald's.
No. And the only way that we were going to agree to them endorsing the world tour of Destiny's Child is we would go to the McDonald houses around the world where they had kids, and they would create healthy eating, a salad.
Wow.
Now, in retrospect, I wish I had pressed harder that a salad was named Destiny's Child.
Wow.
But I didn't. But Destiny's Child is the reason why. Again, go Google the commercial. Destiny's Child, McDonald's. You'll see.
In your book, the DNA of is it a DNA of a winner? Of an achiever? You talk about authenticity. That's one of the principles that I saw in the book was authenticity. Mm-hmm. And when you went to McDonald's, you marketed something that was authentic, something that was germane to them. So now when they're pitching it to their fans and their followers, it's not like they're pitching something that's not real. It's something.
Well, the other thing is, I'm very grateful. My mother encouraged education and knowledge and learning. Remember I said earlier, encyclopedia I had? Yes. She encouraged that. So unfortunately, I have a degree in economics, I have a degree in business, MBA, PhD, gone back to Harvard. My point is I have a real knowledge also of numbers. And so part of them doing salads was an opportunity to go into a different market, to get a different customer. It wasn't all just emotional, hey, this is the best thing. I had to also show them the scalability, the financial model of going into healthy eating. I couldn't walk in there and say, hey, we ain't going to sell no French fries. No, I had to say, look, here's an opportunity for you. I've done the research. This is what that marketplace looked like. And you're always looking at ways to increase profitability. Wow. So you have to be smart in how you.
Wow.
Now it's the who, the what, the why, the where.
Now I see why you were the #1 salesman in the country. When you presented it to them, you presented the research with it as well. Now I wanted to just started to look at just one thing I wanted to talk about was I
only have 5 more minutes because I have another podcast.
Yeah, that's what I'm wrapping up now. This is the last question. The last question is, if you can tell me when it's all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be as Mr. Knowles?
So I get asked that a lot, and I give this same answer. I consider myself a humble person. I hear people say, well, I want my legacy to be this. my perspective is that I don't want to say what I want my legacy to be. I want my body of work to speak, and I want you to say what my legacy is, not what I say it should be.
That's smart.
That has a degree of a degree of arrogance in it that I'm going to say, well, this is what I want my legacy to be. No, I want you to determine what my legacy is.
So I know you're a professor, you're a businessman, you're a keynote speaker. How can people find you with respect to finding you for public speaking and keynote speaking?
Well, I do a lot of speaking, 25 speaking engagements, not including podcasts. So you can go to simple Mathew, one T, MathewKnowles.com, and there's an area that tell you my speaking engagements. I teach also at Prairie View A&M, HBCU. I'm proud of, very proud to be at Prairie View. Amazing new president there, President LeGrand. So you just go to MathewKnowles.com, and I very much enjoyed this interview.
Thank you.
It was more of a conversation.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Knowles, it's been a plum-pleasing pleasure and a privilege to have you on my show. Again, as I said in the beginning, my intention was to give you your flowers. You are a humble man, and you have done great things. May God bless you. May God keep you. May God cause his face to shine upon you, your descendants, your children, and your children's children. Thanks for being here. And as Walter Emerson said, he said, the greatest gift a man can give is a portion of himself. Thank you for just giving us a portion of yourself today. It's been a joy and honor of my life. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Blessings.
This is the Gibson Sylvestre Show, where greatness gets activated.